And where I completely contradict Charles Barkley is that Kevin Durant was the best player on the Golden State Warriors. Steph Curry was a superstar, no doubt about it, and Klay Thompson and the Splash Brothers, the greatest shooting backcourt in history. And obviously he went to them, but no one would doubt that Kevin Durant was the best player on the Golden State Warriors. As great as Steph Curry is, Kevin Durant was the best player on the Golden State Warriors. And anybody who knows basketball outside of Charles Barkley knows that. That's number one. Number two, however, is that KD clapping back, I thought his clap back was inaccurate. Because if you're going to post a picture of Charles Barkley in Houston with Akeem Olajuwon and Scottie Pippen, well, who was the face of that franchise? It was Akeem the Dream Olajuwon. It was not Barkley. Yeah, Barkley went there with expectations and what have you, but that was after he was in Philly and after he was in Phoenix. The reality of the situation is that Houston was never Charles Barkley's franchise. It was Akeem Olajuwon's franchise. In the case of the Brooklyn Nets, this is KD's franchise. And even though I disagree with Barkley because I think it's a bit harsh to call him a bus rider, I understand theoretically where he's coming from. What he's saying is that you're supposed to be the leader, but everybody looks at you being deferential to Kyrie Irving. And that is not a person who should be followed. Kyrie should be following you. So I don't agree with Charles Barkley literally because I thought it was a bit too harsh to classify KD in that manner. But from a theoretical perspective, I understand what he was saying. You're supposed to be the leader, but there's too much following that you engaged in because of Kyrie Irving. And that is something that Kevin Durant is going to have to live with, which is why I said months ago, regardless of the fact that I feel otherwise, and a lot of people will feel otherwise, there's also a lot of people that are going to remember KD most for being the guy that left Steph Curry to join Kyrie Irving. Then they even remember him for the championships he's won, because that's how much of a detrimental effect Kyrie Irving has had on Kevin Durant and his career in Brooklyn.
I agree with him on some, and of course I disagree with him on others. First off, Durant got it wrong. It wasn't going to Houston that Barkley jumped the ship. It was when he wanted out of Philadelphia because he couldn't beat Jordan in the playoffs. And so he said, get me out of here. And he ended up going to Phoenix in that Hornacek trade. And as it turns out, the one great chance he had to win a championship, he lost to Jordan anyway.
Jordan was in the way.
Yeah, so from that standpoint, I blame Barkley for bailing out of Philly more so than I blame him bailing out of Phoenix. And Durant's, Instagram thing had him with the Houston players. He was older then in his career. He had played a long time. I can give him a break.
You remember that, Doggy? You remember that? Way to go, Doggy. Way to go.
Either. Come on. I've been doing this for 40 years. I'm not stupid. Like you. I know what I'm talking about. All right, that's the first thing. Second thing, why is Durant even discussing this? This is what he's worried about? I mean, he had a major issue with Rappaport there. Nobody got a big issue with Rappaport. He's fighting left and right. He gets all upset about that. He's a big sports fan, Durant.
Michael Rappaport.
So he's a big sports fan. So he gets all wrapped up in what everybody says. And I love Durant. Steven knows that. I'm a big Durant fan. He's one of my favorites. I love the guy. But, I mean, why is he worrying about what Barkley? Was he running home to TNT to see the postgame of what Barkley, Kenny, and Shaq say?
What was he supposed to do? That's where the games are. He's watching the game.
Why is he watching a game after he lost game 4 and got swept? He should be freaking in his room with the lights out.
Basketball now?
He should be in his room with the lights out, basically upset. He should be watching TV. Anyway, I don't understand. Why is he wrapped up in what Barkley says? I have no reason for that. I don't get it. Why are you even worried about it? You just got swept. That's the last thing you should worry about is Charles Barkley. But you're right on one thing. His issue is he's got to basically take over the team. Durant is a follower. Durant doesn't want to lead. I mean, he's the best player. You're right. Best player in the Warriors, too. He should tell Kyrie, hold on now. Get your shots. All right? I came here because of you, and I'm better than you. Get your shots. You want to be on this ball club with me, you get your shot. You're not playing 29 games. You're not sitting there, fasting I can't complain about. It's a religious issue. But get your shots. You're going to play home and away. I don't want to hear any nonsense. No road trips because your kid's got a birthday or you got a birthday present party like last year. I'm the boss. I'm the best player. And that's what Durant doesn't do. And you and I are on the same page with that. Durant's issue is you got to be the leader of the team. You have to be the guy. I'm the best player. I'm getting paid the most. We got swept here. I didn't play well, but I didn't get a lot of help. And this is going to stop. So he should put the stop to Irving, and Irving's going to listen to Durant because Durant's better than Irving. That is my issue with Durant. Why is he ever worried about Charles Barkley? Let Charles Barkley talk. That's what Charles does well. Why are you worried about Barkley, for crying out loud? I don't understand that.
Well, let me say this. You're wrong about several things.
What am I wrong about?
Allow me to retort. Number one, Kyrie ain't listening to anybody. Kyrie ain't listening to anybody. You know what I'm saying? Left Duke early. Comes in the NBA, didn't want to vibe with LeBron, gets to Boston, couldn't lead Tatum and Brown. All right, they made it to the conference finals without him. And then when he got there, they got bounced out in the second round. And then after that, he comes to Brooklyn, and you know what? He's doing what he wants to do. That Kyrie ain't listening. That's number one. Number two. You sit up there and talk about why is he watching the games? Well, what the hell is he supposed to do? He just lost. He's supposed to sit in a dark room and never watch another basketball game until next season. He can't enjoy the NBA players. He lost. He lost. I understand that, and he's probably miserable. Maybe watching it will motivate him to be the leader we need him to be and to not tolerate stuff from Kyrie Irving. Maybe, just like LeBron tweeted and said, listen, I'm never missing the playoffs again in my career because this hurts so damn bad to watch these games, and I'm not a part of it. Maybe that's what that's the kind of effect this will have on Durant, because he ain't accustomed to missing the playoffs either. So you saying that he shouldn't be watching the games, shame on you, okay? Doggy watches the game. Why can't he watch the game?
It was 102-77. Dallas was killing Utah. What is there to watch? By the time he got back to New York,
did you watch it?
How'd you know about it? He didn't have to sit there and watch the Dallas-Utah game. They were down by 40 points. What's there to watch?
Did you watch it?
No.
Did you not watch the game?
Second half, no, I got to get up and prepare for you. No, I did not. I got to prepare for you.
I did. And number three, this thing. I mean, what happened to the Mad Dog Russo that I know and love that didn't mind a guy articulating his thoughts, didn't mind a guy being man enough to be honest about what he feels and willingness to clap back and defend himself? Well, listen, we live in the age of social media and beyond. The advent of social media, millions upon millions of people got something to say. If Kevin Durant, who is a brilliant basketball player and a brilliant basketball mind, feels compelled to speak up for himself, I applaud that. I'd rather him do it than sending one of your minions to do it or one of your hanger-ons or somebody to do something like that. No, he does it himself. Okay? I respect that. I respect the fact that, guess what? If I say something and Kevin Durant don't like it, Kevin Durant's going to come right back at me. Draymond Green going to come right back at me. D. Wade, when he was playing, will come right back at me rather than sending people to do it for you. They do it themselves. I remember Kobe Bryant used to scare the living hell out of me because guess what? If I said something and he didn't agree with me, Kobe Bryant himself, God rest his soul, I would get a call directly for him. What the hell did you just say? I know you didn't just say that, Steve. I mean, that's what I'm talking about. You understand? Because you can respect that. This is a superstar who knows the game backwards and forwards, plays on an elite level, and is a champion. And if he has a problem with what Mad Dog Russo, Stephen A., or anybody, or Joe Blow has to say, he's going to speak up directly himself. That is something I respect. I'm not going to malign Kevin Durant for speaking up on his own behalf, and you shouldn't either. You should be ashamed that you're coming at him for that.
Watching early in the day, Kevin, here's what you do. You talk to the media, you go back to New York City, you have yourself a Coca-Cola.
He TiVo'd it.
You shut the TV off.
DVR.
You put your music on, and you sit in your bed, and you wonder, how the heck did we just get swept by the Boston Celtics, and I got to do better. And I got to get Kyrie Irving to get on the same page. You don't sit there and watch the Jazz and the Mavericks and having your ears to the TV to make sure Barkley is in line. That's the last thing you do to Kevin Durant. That's the last thing you do.
So, Dougie, let me ask you this. What you going to do next? You going to tell him to get the sage that Kyrie Irving sprinkled around TD Bank Garden? You going to tell him to do that too? You going to tell him to make himself some hot chamomile tea and lay in the bed, put on your headphones, turn off the lights, don't watch some TV, listen to Al Green or Teddy Pendergrass or the Isley Brothers or something like that? That's what you going to do next? You going to you going to tell him that too? You going to tell him what pajamas to wear next? I mean, who are you? He can't sit back and watch it. He probably DVR'd it, went home, and and just said, yo, I watched this and this is what I saw. I mean, the TNT post-game show is pretty much on it till 1 o'clock in the damn morning. What's the problem? I can't believe that you saying this kind of stuff. Would you,
Hold on.
Or you gonna tell his mama to make
Hold on,
cookies and milk too?
Crosby, Stills, and Nash, and take a gummy. I don't know. But
eliminated from the playoffs in the first round. Here's what he had to say after their exit.
I felt like I was letting the team down at a point where I wasn't able to play. We were trying to exercise every option for me to play, but I never wanted to just be about me. And I think it became a distraction at times.
All right, Mad Dog, I'm going to start with you on this one. So a lot of things went wrong with Brooklyn this entire season. Who would you blame the most for their Nets failure?
Well, listen, he's hanging fruit. So if you want to kill Kyrie, I'm sure Stephen A. might do that in a second. Go ahead. I mean, and I'll be right with him on that. I think, to me, he's poison. I don't think you're winning with him. Mm-hmm. So I'm down on him. But I'm going to put the blame on ownership and, to a certain degree, the GM, Sean Marks. This is an enabling organization. They fired Kenny Atkinson. He did not deserve to be fired a couple years ago. Why? Because Irving and Durant decided they didn't want to play for Atkinson, so they got him out of there, and they bring Nash in, who had no experience whatsoever. That's number one. You can't have your players tell you who they should have coach. And they didn't want to play for Atkinson, so they fired him. That was a disaster. That's the first thing. Second thing, they bring in Harden at that trade. You should all know, and they gave up Allen, who's a very good boy. Could they have used him in this series against the Celtics, his size and everything else? And he's a good piece. He's a good intangible player. They bring Harden in, who basically annoyed everybody in Houston, didn't want to play there. That should be a warning right out of the gate. When you got a guy who basically decides he wants to not play for a franchise, yet he wants to play for you, that makes you wonder, you know what, I'm not going to go with this guy because he might not want to play for me down the road. I'm going to have the same problem that the Rockets had. So that's the second problem I don't like. Thirdly, they got all these rules for Irving. They did a good thing at the beginning of the year. You know what? No vaccinations. He's not playing in the game. Not going to play on the road. He's not. This is our team going forward, and it's unfortunate if it changes, we'll get him reinstated. But right now, he's not part of the ball club any way, shape, or form, which was the right way to go. Then they had some injuries, and they go the other way. Well, you know what? Now we can play. We'll let him play on the road. We'll worry about home thing. So they had the one situation where he couldn't play at all, which was the right thing because they didn't enable a player. And then they're in a situation where they change and they get off it. And they said, well, you know what? We need him now because they got a bunch of injuries. So to me, the Nets, and they're a very polarizing team anyway, to me, the Nets are exactly what they showed. This is their team. They have they have no winning culture. They got a couple of guys on the team. They play isolation basketball. They have Irving, who basically runs the whole deal, decides when he wants to play, when he doesn't want to play. And this is what you get. If they ever give him a big contract extension, they're absolutely crazy. But I'm going to put the blame on ownership. You don't see this issue with Harrison down in Miami. He lets Riley run the team. They got a winning culture. And Miami every year gives you good effort. The players play. And all of a sudden, once in a while, they play in an NBA final. There is no winning culture with the Nets, and for that, the ownership and Marks have to take some responsibility. Atkinson, trades, letting Irving basically rule the roost, that is what gets them in trouble. And so when they had to be in a situation where they had to have an identity and dig deep against a tough team and a tough-minded team in Boston, they had nowhere to go. And they cough up and blow 4 games. So I blame it on the ownership.
Not bad, doggy. Not bad.
You agree?
I get where you're coming. I didn't say that. I mean, I agree with you in terms of what you're saying about them, just not that they're the primary ones responsible for all of this. And the reason why I say to you is that, again, Kevin Durant arrives. He's around the team. He's one of the preeminent stars in the basketball universe. He comes to you as a 2-time champion who would have won 3 straight if he didn't tear his Achilles. So remember, his first year there, he was not on the basketball court. Correct. But he was around the team a lot. And because of his basketball acumen and him being around the team, if somebody like Atkinson was not somebody that he wanted there, then you have to trust that he might have an idea of what's best, particularly at that moment in time where he was presumably going to the New York Knicks and then he was convinced to come to the Brooklyn Nets. So you hand him the franchise, you got to roll with them. So I'm not going to blame ownership to the degree that you did because I thought initially they had no choice. Now, from this point forward, you got to bring a heavy hand down because you gave him 3 years and you gave him the opportunity to turn around this franchise and to do so in a way that was productive and beneficial to all parties concerned. And that is not what has happened. So now you don't have to capitulate to Kevin Durant the way that you once did. But 3 years ago, you did. Ultimately, this comes down to Mr. Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving, and I'm saying this because of what he has done over the last couple of seasons. I'm not even bringing into any differences with LeBron James. I'm not bringing in anything with Boston and, whatever leadership he was lacking when Tatum and Brown went to the Eastern Conference Finals without him. But when he got there, they were bounced out by Milwaukee in the second round. I'm not bringing any of that up. I'm just relying on Brooklyn since he arrived. This guy's one of the worst teammates you could possibly have. He ain't worse than Ben Simmons. He is the worst. Ben Simmons might be the worst teammate in the history of basketball. I mean, when you really, really think about it. And by the way, just as an aside, let me say this, doggy. I saw Jalen Rose on Get Up this morning. And we are all mindful and sensitive to mental health issues. We understand how serious it is. The Kevin Loves of the world, the DeMar DeRozes of the world, and others have spoken up about it. They haven't been ridiculed. They've been completely supported. We understood what they were going through. They were honest and straightforward about it. They came out. They said what they had to say. They put forth their due diligence to rectify whatever was going on, and it's still a work in progress, and they're back out on the court doing big things for their respective franchises. Ben Simmons is not to be compared to those guys. This dude is on the bench looking like a male model, okay? Got on pink shades one day, orange pants another, doing everything he can to bring attention to himself, except for when it comes to getting your behind on the court and playing basketball. He might be the worst teammate in the history of sports. Kyrie ain't that bad, but Kyrie's pretty bad.
100%.
Because